Sorry, I had a knock at the door. Anyway, personally, I'm not a big fan of the 3-4 defense, and Wade Phillips' 3-4 doesn't put enough emphasis into actually covering receivers, in my opinion, and is really, really dependent on quarterback pressure. But that's just me, and, I wouldn't call him a genius, and, Dungy was a laid-back guy, but, I think it would be erroneous to compare him to Wade Phillips, because Dungy drives his players really hard. He puts I think, Wade Phillips is a bit more lackadaisical about how he goes about things. I think that would be fair to say. And, Dungy, I think, is a Hall of Famer. If you look at his track record, all those great years in Tampa, he dug them out of the cellar and led them to the playoffs several times. And he didn't have a single bad year in Indianapolis, and he has a Super Bowl ring. I just think that's a bit of a odd comparison to make, but whatever. Anyway, I just think that especially a Cowboys fan should be a little more disappointed with Wade right now. He's the coach. You can talk about Romo and his vacation. Okay, that's something. But Wade did not prepare the team, and when they looked bad at the end of the season against Green Bay, the second half against Green Bay, really, they looked a little soft. Against Detroit, against Philly, and all that, he, instead of trying to better the team and get the team ready, I think he kind of tried to make excuses for the poor play, blame it on this and that, and say it's going to be better in the playoffs. And that's really disappointing. I mean, he let his team rest, and he didn't know that his team wasn't the kind of team that could rest and just bounce right back. That sort of stuff. And I think Wade Phillips needs to be held a little more accountable for this. I think that getting rid of him needs to be more of a possibility. However, Dallas did just lock up Jason Garrett to a long-term extension, so it's not as big of a deal now because you might as well pencil him in for 2009 Dallas Cowboys head coach. So now it's not a big deal because you held on to Garrett either way. But I think Garrett gives you a great chance to win next year, more so than Phillips. But that's just maybe me personally not liking Phillips. Some other things, John Harbaugh gets signed by the Baltimore Ravens as the head coach. I like it. He was a great defensive coach in Philly, and if you look at Philly in recent years, they've had great defensive back play. They've drafted Pro Bowlers like Lito Shepherd and Sheldon Brown. They got good years out of Michael Lewis. Brian Dawkins, of course, has been there for a while. And before then, you had Bobby Taylor and Troy Vincent in the secondary. Consistently, Philadelphia has had a great defensive back set. So I think he's going to be really happy to work in Baltimore. He's got two great safeties in Ed Reed and DeJuan Laundrie that he can work with, pretty young. He needs to rebuild that corner set because McAllister and Roll are washed up, or at least getting up there in age. So it's a good signing. Bad news for Philly, though, because their secondary is supposed to be their strong point, and when you lose a secondary coach, you have to start thinking about what now, But I think they'll be all right, but it's not the coach they wanted to lose. Let's see. What else do we got here? You got the Colts signing Hagler to a one-year extension. He's one of those players. He's not very good, but he fits perfectly in the Indianapolis system. The Packers just extended McCarthy on a 5-year extension. Great decision. He's obviously taken this team well beyond what anyone expected last year and this year. The Rams owner, Georgia Frontier, died at 80 of a severe illness, and I don't really know who she was. I don't know her like Jerry Jones or Wellington Mara, so it's difficult for me to comment on that. But it's a shame, and we'll see what happens from here on out. Our own defensive back coach, Jim Moore, withdrawed his name from the Redskins coaching search. I kind of wish he went, because I don't want him as my head coach. I think he's too much of a player person. I don't think he's hard enough on players. I'd rather send him to Washington than have him head coach here. But if he stays on as our DB coach, that's great because he did wonders for our defensive backs this year. Trufant, Grant, Jennings, Russell, Babineau, all these guys had great years, and I think that comes back to him. But I don't want him as my head coach. Let's see. And it sounds like if Dungy retires, which I still suspect, but I hold out hope, I think it's about 50-50 right now. Jim Caldwell will not be taking over, so now you wonder what's going to happen with that. Are they going to bring in a guy like Mike Singletary? Because, you know, he's a bit of a defensive mind, or so they think. And maybe he could do some good things with the Indianapolis defense, but they'd have to change their schemes. And right now they're just running the Tampa 2 so well, I don't think that's a choice. I think they need to try and bring in a guy who can run the Tampa 2. I don't know who that is. 10 Seahawks are having surgery going under the knife now that the season's over. We've already had Alexander, one of the special team linebackers, I think Chris Spencer, Walter Jones, all these different guys going under the knife. You know, it's rough because you just hope these guys can make it out of the locker room all right. Surgery room all right. There are 10 guys, good part of our roster, but it looks like all of them are going to be okay except for Branch. Losing him sucks. If we don't have him next year, that would suck, but I'm ready to move forth without him. People are talking about how we need to get like Chad Johnson to replace him. I don't believe in that. I think our receivers are pretty good right now. I want to get a tight end and a guard and move forward. And, there's other stuff I could comment on. This whole Randy Moss thing, I think it needs to be talked about a little bit because, distractions in the playoffs can be multiplied many, many times over. Look at Eugene Robinson a few years ago with Atlanta in that Super Bowl. Justin Tuck re-signed with the Giants. Great re-signing by them. It sounds like a lot of money, but I think it's exactly what they needed to do because he's such a key player. And looks like that's all I got to say. So, see you guys later.